Hey everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about how to apply domain-specific knowledge to your LLM lifecycle. A traditional approach starts with a data engineer who's curating data that is then used by a data scientist who ultimately takes that data trains it to the model, and then makes that model available for inference. One of the challenges with this, though, is that the data over here being used is typically a traditional database of some sort, either SQL or NoSQL, and it's usually containing metrics or sales data or anything that's typically organized or curated by an organization. The challenge here is getting domain-specific knowledge within an organization and applying it to this same process. Now, let's look at the same approach, but use a variety of tools that can empower people like project managers and business analysts to be contributing to the process. So here we have a project manager and the business analyst. They both have domain-specific knowledge about processes within their organization. But these could be stored in Word documents or text files of some sort, not the traditional data stores that we have that we typically use within a model lifecycle. But we can change this. We can use a tool like InstructLab to manage this process. InstructLab is an open source tool that allows the management of what we call a taxonomy. This taxonomy is just a Git repository, typically, where we can manage things like MD files or text files, and then apply that to our model. We can even have more traditional document formats like PDFs and have those be transformed in the necessary file structure that InstructLab takes. Once they've applied that data to the taxonomy that InstructLab manages, we can then start the more traditional process that we saw earlier. But we don't actually need a data scientist in this case. InstructLab is handling all of that, and it will then create synthetic data through this process. Now, I know synthetic data, that sounds kind of scary, but I want to approach it in a different way. Think of synthetic data in this case as just another way of reframing the question. Instead of one way of asking a question, we could have many different ways of asking this same question. This empowers the model, especially when we go through the training cycle, to then apply more opportunities to the LLM to be able to accurately reply to your prompts. Once we've trained the model, we can then go ahead and deploy it into an AI platform. This could be Kubernetes-based, like OpenShift, for example. And this can take advantage of different AI accelerators that can be used, like NVIDIA, AMD, or Intel, for example. Now, this is the infrastructure layer, but we want to be able to interact with our model and be able to configure the inference and be able to apply metrics and all those things that need to be part of the MLOps lifecycle. Now, we can do this with an extension for OpenShift called Red Hat OpenShift AI, which will provide you all those tools for managing the lifecycle of this model within production. Now, you may want to then interact with that model. You want to validate it or apply governance or other things, even just sandbox with it. This could be done with something like watsonx AI that can sit on top of OpenShift and interact with all the models that are being inferred within this AI stack. Now, once this lifecycle has finished, we can then restart the whole process again and use the new data that has since been built up by our project managers and business analysts and go through this lifecycle once more. But one thing to note is that can be really costly. We may not want to run this process over and over again every week. We may only have the budget to run it maybe once a month or once every other month. Well, we can use technologies like RAG and have this data come over here in the interim before we go through this process again. Once we do that, we can flesh out our RAG database and then start anew as data is collected by our project managers and our business analysts. All right, we've shown the complete model lifecycle and how to apply domain-specific knowledge from people within our organization, like project managers and business analysts, then manage that data through a taxonomy through InstructLab, generate synthetic data that's then used for training that model, and then ultimately deploying into a Kubernetes-based platform like OpenShift, utilizing AI services from tools like watsonx AI, and ultimately using technologies like RAG to enhance that experience. Thank you so much for watching.